Chrissy. Happy podcast day. What are you
As
drinking?
You can see, I'm already preparing for talking to you today because
I see that.
I feel
Wow.
like,
Is that an alcoholic beverage?
I just feel like I want a little liquid courage for today.
Wow. Okay. So you caused some people to stare at us today. We went to Marco Island for lunch, and tell our listeners what you brought with you, Christine.
Well, as you know, I do enjoy making sourdough bread. And one of my regular customers who flies in randomly did text me the other day and said, hey, if you're baking, I'm taking. So we just got back from
Did he actually text that? Because if he
does.
actually texts those
Every
words,
time he comes into town, he says, if you're baking, I'm taking. So, which makes me laugh, but he's a great customer. So I had to whip up some bread today, and I played this morning, and then you text and you said you wanted to go out for lunch because it's a beautiful day.
yes, you played pickleball. For our listeners that don't know what you play, could be chess, it could be checkers. No, it's not though. It's pickleball.
If they don't know, they don't listen. So
that's true.
So I made my sourdough bread, but I have to stretch it every 30 minutes for 3 to 4 hours. So it had to come with us to lunch today.
Right, which normally renders us tethered to the house.
Not today.
No, in fact, you've been getting more bold in the past. You did take sourdough bread out to dinner with us when our friends Carrie and Dawn were visiting, but you every half hour you set a timer and you went to the car to stretch. But today, I think Carrie and Dawn will be so proud of your evolution. You literally brought the giant bowl of dough with us to the restaurant, and no one even questioned you from the restaurant as they sat us.
No.
But people did stare as you were stretching your dough on the table every 30 minutes.
But once I said, I'm making sourdough, the woman at the table, like 3 tables went over, she goes, oh, that's what I thought. And I think that, honestly, this is like kind of the cool part, right? The evolution of baking and making this is that now I'm making this and I am oceanside. Yeah. So I think that this bread is going to taste even better because it has now gotten, the salt air, being at the beach. It's really, I think the hydration is going to be higher.
So that's an actual thing. I would love our sourdough bread bakers to validate this. So if you were just here at home stretching it inside the walls of the house, you're telling me that by bringing it outside and stretching it by the ocean on Marco Beach, that it's going to absorb the salt in the air. Is that what you are genuinely telling me?
It evolves the flavor. And your bread, depending on where you are, if it's super humid, your bread is going to take that hydration in. So it's going to change the makeup of it. And now we were right on the island. We were the water was 20 feet from us. So it was going to take it. And it was so humid today. The hydration, I actually pulled hydration out of the original mix because I knew I was going to get so much more out there. And I could tell by the different texture as I was pulling it, how different it was. So yeah, I'm very excited about how this is going to turn.
You're talking over my head, pulling hydration out. But you know what? Listen, I'm the benefactor of these loaves of bread because you always make an extra one and I get to eat it. So that makes me very happy. But it made me laugh so hard because people were straight up staring at us.
Listen, I won't even eat store-bought bread anymore. I will only eat the bread I make.
Yeah, you kind of spoiled me. And especially when you added the nutty bread loaf, because I said, I want a protein loaf with nutty bread, and you delivered. So I'm really proud of you. So you can take your dough anywhere you want from now on, and I will endure all of the stares.
Okay. I wasn't ashamed.
All right. I'm glad we got through this. Speaking of the evolution, we have an interesting topic today. So welcome to the Disruptors Creed podcast. I'm Kristen Ziman, and I am shocked you are here. I am here with my intern, Chris.
Co-host.
And today we're actually talking about evolution, not like, the Darwinian kind, not like the evolution of the universe, but the messy human kind of evolution. What happens when we grow, but the people around us don't update their understanding of who we are? So let me lay the base on how this story started. We had a lovely weekend with one of our besties, and he flew into Florida, and we met him over in Miami and had a wonderful 4th of July weekend in Miami Beach. So he's going through a divorce, and we were sitting at the bar and we were talking about his breakup. And what struck me was not the typical post breakup bitterness. This is a different kind of divorce. It's very amicable, right? But what struck me even more was his accountability for his role in the breakdown of the relationship. And you don't hear that very often, especially when it comes to an unraveling of a relationship. There's a lot of blame that is cast, and he didn't launch into a tirade about his ex. Instead, he said something that I thought was so profound, and I was like, we've got to talk about it. He said, we both held so tightly to the beliefs that we had about each other's roles in the relationship that we never left room for who we were becoming. It just blows my mind.
I think it's relevant to point out that he is not the one that initiated the divorce,
Correct.
which made me respect it even more because
Yeah, that's a good
he's
point.
because he didn't even know this was coming. He wasn't, he was a little bit blindsided in it, but the fact that he was able to see that, and then that when he said that sitting there with us, I will tell you my mind started spiraling because I
Yeah.
thought, how God, this isn't just relationships. This is,
Yeah.
you insert friendships, families, jobs, whatever it is, but to hold on so tightly to who we were and not allow each other to grow and
Yeah.
keep each other in the boxes that when we first met.
Yeah. What he had said is the roles that they had when they began their relationship were very clear cut. He said he had always taken the lead, booking travel, managing the finances, making the plans. And he said it wasn't malicious, it was just out of habit. And gosh, I've watched it. It's also out of love. He assumed that that is what his partner wanted. But then what felt like protection to him became control to the other. And so that slow erosion of autonomy left his partner feeling invisible. And basically, what happened is that rebellion set in, and not with like this blow up rebellion, but with silence, with like a shutdown where he just, there was just a shutdown, and then it was just done. So it wasn't about blame, it was about the inability or unwillingness to let each other evolve. And you make a great point that it's not just about our partners in life, our spouses. It's like all of the people that we keep in the boxes that we have built for them.
It takes me back to our listener who emailed me. Yeah, me, not you, your co-host. And she said the same thing. Do you remember? She talked about when she gets together with her friends that she's had since junior high, they
Yeah.
keep her in the box that she was in since they were 14. And the
Mm-hmm.
fact is she has evolved and she has grown and she has changed, and they don't allow her to have that. And then I think back to things in my own life.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are people who they don't allow you to be the person that you've become. They
Yeah.
only know one version of you. And when you try to step out of that box, or you try to grow, or you try to better yourself, they want to put you right back in that box because that's what they
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah. So, like I often do, after my wheels started spinning on this, I started doing some research on it. And this
A
is
couple of
called
margs later,
it was a couple of skinny margs later. It's true. It was true. It was true. I went down a little rabbit hole, and psychologists call this identity foreclosure. So it happens when we make a premature, rigid judgment about who someone is and then cling to it despite there being new evidence. And I thought how much this resonates with people that I hear that go back home for the holidays, especially, families and the dynamics of families where you're typecast early, all of the labels that we attach to people, the responsible one, the rebel, the peacemaker. And then, you go back home after having this childhood label put on you in this role that you have assumed in the family dynamic. And it doesn't matter if you're middle-aged, you suddenly feel like you're 15 again. And, as if you aren't grown ass and aren't paying your own mortgage, and so I've thought about that, how people often feel like they revert back to their childhood self when they go when they go hang out with their family. And it's the same concept, right? It's like not observing, not being cognizant that other people evolve, and back to us putting them in boxes.
Yeah, and I think that like when we talk about family, you know that personally I'm dealing with some of that stuff right now. And I think that part of that is like you go back and you get this role put on you, and it's like the person who's putting that role on you, they don't even know you anymore.
That's right.
Because they
Yeah.
haven't built the relationship. They haven't taken the time. They don't know you. They don't talk to you. They don't see how much you've grown or evolved, because maybe they haven't grown or evolved. Maybe because they're
Yeah.
stuck in this miserable, or they're stuck in the same place that they've been since whatever age. And they don't want to see anyone else grow. So instead of recognizing, wow, you've come a long way, or you've changed, or you've grown, or whatever it is, they want to label you whatever it is that makes them feel comfortable with who they are, instead of
Yeah.
seeing the growth.
Yeah, even when someone does change, maybe, quits drinking, sets new boundaries, starts therapy, or dares to pursue something bold or different, we often can't reconcile that new version of them because it completely conflicts with the version that we have stored in our mental archives. So we keep treating them the same way. And so then that person has to make a choice to choose between shrinking to fit or breaking the relationship. And you bring up a good point, and it's personal, but yeah, there's this label or this persona that was, placed upon you. And when I heard that described about you, I thought that's not even close to who you are. And that's because this individual hasn't even taken the time to learn about you, or even to comprehend that people change and grow up and evolve. And once again, it's also, you have to consider a source that this person has not evolved at all. So
No.
it makes sense. But this is why a lot of friendships fade, why marriages dissolve, why family reunions sometimes leave us feeling hollow. And I don't think that it's out of malice. I think it's just because we keep relating to who someone was and not who they are now. It's
So
our
is it
problem.
is it a comfort level? Is it a comfort level? Do we fall back into what we have always labeled people as, or have what we've always known because it's comfortable, because we're not ready to see the growth? Or is that why we don't allow people to grow and evolve, because we know how to handle them the way they are, so it's comfortable to know that this is my label for you?
Yeah, I think that does have a lot to do with it. I think this is just sort of the data that we've collected, the evidence that we have, and we tend to fall right back onto that evidence. Also, you hear me say this to the kids all the time. If you're not growing together, you're growing apart. Growth is and change is truly the only constant in life. Hopefully, that everyone is evolving, is changing, is becoming. We're always in a process of becoming. And I think that the person who is perhaps evolving, challenging themselves to be better, to do better. I think when the other person that they're in the relationship with isn't changing or evolving, then that is where I think the problem happens, is one person changes and the other person is like, wait, what are you doing? I'm used to this version of you. But if they themselves were also changing and evolving, well, then that would be an ongoing process that they both, kind of respect and challenge one another to change. And honestly, you struggled with this with me, because I remember there was a day that we got into it and you said to me, have you not even noticed the vast improvements in whatever the areas that we were having conflict? And honestly, because I was, I guess, stuck in what I was upset about, that I was like, oh my gosh, you really have. I was clinging to what was, and I wasn't paying attention to what is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because we actually talked about that a little bit. And that was really profound for me in that moment when we had this conversation, because you were able to admit that you,
Yeah.
even though you've seen the growth. You don't accept it.
Yeah. I didn't see it because I was so busy basically keeping you in that box. I mean, the metaphor just, it's so good. Okay. So this also makes sense. We were driving back from Miami yesterday and we were listening to a podcast with a guest by the name of Dr. Ellen Langer.
She
And
talks too much.
she just doesn't ever let her host ask a question and then finish the question. But she's really freaking smart. Oh, shut your face.
She is. She
Okay.
is.
I love her so much. I feel like I am having to backtrack because if she ever listens to our podcast, which will never happen, but you just shit on her. Okay. But anyway, she is all about mindfulness. And so I've been drawn to her work, but it's not like the kind of mindfulness that we think of like meditation. It's about noticing people and things around us, living in the moment. And here's what she said. She said, when is the last time that you looked at the person that you're married to, you're in a relationship with, and you noticed 3 new things about them? And I was blown away.
Because I do that all the time.
You do. You
And you
do.
never do.
No, I was, and that's probably why I was so blown away because that's the thing I needed to hear in the moment. It's because when you're mindful, you're actively noticing things. Like when I was thinking about this as she was talking, I was like, oh my gosh, like the evolution of you has been absolutely amazing. And in just your hobbies, I mean, baking bread is as we talked about, but you found these niches.
Not. I mean,
And
I didn't want
you
to.
did.
You said it, not me. I'm
You,
sorry.
I opened the door. But yeah, you just rocked some croissants the other day. But it's not even that. It's not about the finished product. It's about the effort in learning. You have put
Yeah.
so much effort into learning how to do these things. It's cooking is this thing because you were, oh my gosh, I know that my children
I
will
was a
back.
terrible cook.
Okay. All right. I wasn't going to say it, but you
Oh
did.
no, it
You
was
were
terrible.
so
It was
bad.
terrible.
You were
I
so
know.
bad.
I know.
And
I can
I
honestly,
know.
I'm 100%. I was terrible.
Yeah, and the kids and I, we just used to like kind of look at each other and just have to choke it down because we didn't want to hurt your feelings.
No, you guys
But
hurt my feelings all the time, but
I
go ahead.
know, oh my God, it was so bad. But so then
Well,
you did this thing where you're just like, you know what? I suck at this and I want to get better at this. And then you started getting better at cooking. You started taking risks and then you started baking bread. Because it's an evolution, it's like I wasn't stopping to think about the 3 new things to get me out of the autopilot and into present and how proud I am of you for these great things that you're doing to challenge yourself. I love the finished product, but it's not about the finished product. It's just about
right.
doing new things to, it's like tracking someone's growth and noticing it. So, listeners, who in your life have you stopped truly seeing? Take a look at the people around you. Pick one person, pick your partner, pick a friend or a colleague and observe 3 new things about them in this coming week. Maybe like their energy, how they move, what they value, maybe just something that they have taken to better themselves. Like, wow, I've noticed that you've really tried to be healthier. I noticed this. Man, let them surprise you with the things that they're doing. I just thought that was so profound. And it goes back to just the breakup and our friends. And it's so sad, but it happens. Life happens like that.
Yeah. So when you watch your partner and you and I see each other very differently.
By that, what do you mean by that?
Well, because you're you and I'm me. And so we see each other very differently. And like,
No, we don't see each other very differently. People see us very differently.
no, I'm saying that I see you very differently than you see me.
I don't know what you mean by that.
In me watching you, I have found the security in being able to fail. Like I'm watching you do these new things all the time that you're terrified of, whether it's getting on stage and like now you're creating all this digital content for your page. And I watch you do it and it's uncomfortable because that's not who you are, but you're doing it because you have a great message to put out there. But me watching all of this gives me the courage to try something new, to be like, I'm going to try a new recipe. I am going to conquer croissants. I am going to make my bread better. I am going to go out and learn how to build something or whatever it does, because I'm watching you and we're at the same age and you've already hit, you had this.
I'm younger.
You had this height. I flicked her off for anybody who's listening. You had this height, right? You became the chief. You worked your way up from a cadet to the chief, and you did all these wonderful things, and you changed the culture at the PD. And then you left there and you were a little bit lost, but now you found this whole new thing. And I love watching you on stage, and you're delivering this great message. And as I watch you take all these risks and all these chances, I think I can do that.
So we've been pretty good about the evolution of one another, in that, I pursued something, you gave me that space to pursue something, and then it was your turn to pursue
Yeah.
something. When I went back to school, I finished, and you're like, wait, I want to go back and get my master's degree. So then you went and pursued something, which is
Yeah.
what it should be like. It's hard to do everything all at once, especially when you're raising kids. And so there have been new things in your life that, you have evolved, I have evolved. So I think we're pretty good, and we don't like the same things.
No.
Pickleball, exhibit A. So we don't like the same thing. So I'm also not suggesting, when I say grow together, that you have to like the same things. It's not that. It's just the evolution of growth and a commitment to constant self-improvement. But here is my question. What do you think we're really afraid of when someone starts changing? So if you would have looked at me and
Oh,
said,
being
wow,
left
I don't,
behind.
being left behind, it's that simple,
Being
isn't
left
it?
behind. You and I like different things, but there's still some commonalities there. And there are times that I have those little moments where I get a little salty, because you're with other people and you're talking about this great podcast or blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, you didn't send it to me, because and I do like it, but like every day I cannot listen to a self-help podcast. I love you, but I can't.
That's
I
why I
need
don't send
like
them to you. You just answered your own question.
no, but I do like them, because you sent me one the other day, that happiness podcast, and I got so much out of that podcast. But it is part of it is the fear of being left behind, the fear of what if I don't challenge you intellectually enough, and so you need to find that someplace else. So for me, a long time ago, I had to understand the fact that we're not always going to meet on the same level. And what's better is that you have your people, I have my people.
Yeah.
And we have the same people too. We have
Yeah.
common friends. But like that's what's the good thing, is that for you to go out and have your people that meet you on a different level, and mine meet me on my level. And then we come back together and we have more to talk about.
Yeah. So going back to just what you said about the fear of being left behind, that is so interesting to me, because I wonder why we don't trust someone's change. Like, what is it that makes us question it? What makes us believe that we're going to get left behind?
Because that's
It's
generally,
insecurity, right?
I don't know if it's insecurity, Kay. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not sure it's insecurity. I think that when one person's growing and the other one isn't, you are left behind. And that is a fear. And I think that it's not insecurity, because the fact is when one person's growing and one person isn't, you outgrow each other.
Yeah.
And divorce happens, friendships
Yeah.
end. Those things happen because if you're not growing together
Yeah.
or both evolving, somebody is left behind, and you find something else that's going to grow in the same direction as you. And it's a fear of being left behind, because it's not about being insecure. You could be the most secure person in the world, but if you're going this way and I'm going this way, we're never going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. I think of I think the most simple example, maybe two people who have been, let's say, not interested in improving their overall health or well-being. And so they don't, work out, they don't do anything to better themselves, but then one person starts, and the one person maybe loses weight, one person takes on this healthy lifestyle. And this is where we see people sabotage, where they're like, why are you doing this? Why are you changing? Because they don't want to change. So I'm going back to the resistance in change in others totally forces us to look in the mirror. I'm just trying to work through this, because that does force the other person to look at themselves and say, okay, well, maybe I should join them on this journey as well, which would be amazing, because then you have two people who, start to commit. And as we all know, it's much easier when you and I, when we commit together to being healthy, boy, is it easier than when one person is like, I'm going to eat whatever and drink
Mhm.
whatever. And we go through these, we're like, no, we are absolutely going to, be regimented. And
No
that is
Dairy
so
Queen.
much easier than doing it alone. I actually think there's a security that goes along with it. So I'm going to try to describe this, but it's just a Venn diagram. And remember, this is what I've drawn for our children as well. I draw one circle, and then next to that circle, I draw another circle where they're two separate circles, but the middle of the circle is overlapping those circles. And I tell the kids, and this is before they even got married and met their significant others, and I say, every person is their own circle. And where you overlap, man, you are better together than you are apart. But there is that circle that is still you. It's your identity. It's your hobbies. It's the things that you love to do. And if that circle was sitting right on top of you and you liked the same things and you did the same things and you had the same people, well, then I don't know. I feel like that circle would suffocate me. So I like the overlap of a circle. And I think that is the healthiest relationship. So the circles have to be connected, I guess is what I'm trying to say in all this is you don't have to like the same things, but you do have to have your own things, and you do have to have the security and confidence.
And there's absolutely security in that. What you're talking about, it is having this sense of security. It's trusting your partner. It's trusting, whoever it is that, whatever relationship it is, friendship, whatever it is. But let's just stick with what we know, your partner. It's trusting your partner, knowing that you do have this overlap. You're together. You're growing together. They have their autonomy. You have your autonomy. And then, when you're away from each other, you can trust each other, and they
Mhm.
don't do anything, or you don't do anything to change that. And I think that's where the breakdown happens, right? So you have this overlapping circle. One person thinks everything's okay,
Mhm.
and they have this security and they have this trust, and you have autonomy, I have autonomy. And then the other person goes out and cheats
Mhm.
because they're lacking something, but they haven't communicated that with you, or
Mhm.
whatever the situation is. We've watched it in plenty of our friends' marriages and people around us. And then so all the security you thought you had built is gone.
Yeah, of course. And we've lived this. We live this. We know about this, and that there is definitely something lacking. Yeah, when a person then makes that decision, yeah, to step
Right.
out and
So
then
so that's all I'm saying is, like, so there's absolutely a security in it. And that's why I think that, like, the fear of being left behind isn't insecurity, but I think being able to share your life with each other, with another human being, and each of you having your own autonomy is, like, there's a security there that once you build that trust level, I see. I'm not sure how to say it.
because you just said it's not an insecurity, but then you said, but then you build the security,
Well,
which is the
no,
antithesis of that. Because
I don't
I
mean like
think
it's
I disagree. I think it's insecurity. I think it's
the fear of
insecurity.
being left behind. I don't feel like is an insecurity. I just feel like when you're not growing and evolving and your partner is, you're going to be left behind. That doesn't mean you're insecure. It's just a fact.
But it kind of the way that you're describing it. So like using pickleball as an example. I don't want to play pickleball. You have built listen, you've built a community and you have made a lot of friends playing pickleball. And if I were insecure, I would feel like I was left behind. I would feel like, wow, I don't have that friend group that you do, but I don't feel that way. But I'm also not insecure. But what I'm saying is, like, I have my stuff. Like, I am so fulfilled by the things I do. When you are playing pickleball, I stay home and I write and I research, and that makes me happy. So I don't feel like I'm missing. In fact, this is what I mean about it being the force multiplier, about our Venn diagram circles overlapping. It's that then you say, I met some really great people today and we're going out to dinner with them. And I benefit from your singular independent circle,
Right.
and
And I
you
benefit
benefit
from
from
your
mine.
podcasts
And you benefit from mine.
and your
But
book
I do
clubs.
I do think it comes down to I think it's insecurity, because like people who are secure don't, and I'm take out like worrying that they're going to do something. Take out the whole cheating
Right.
aspect of it. Take that out. That to me is a no-brainer, of course. But I'm just talking about where people feel left behind is, usually because they feel insecure because they are not bettering themselves. So I think that's the remedy, is that you have to build your own circle,
You have to
and
grow
then
together
yes. So it's
with
growing
each
together, but
when you're
not
growing,
doing the same things.
which totally agree, because I think when you do the same things, it gets annoying. Like,
Yeah. Well,
you
we like
don't
to do a lot of the
need,
same things, but we also like to do a lot of things that are different. I don't know if we're making any sense here. This is why I'm not a psychologist. Listeners, take anything that you hear here with a grain
no,
of
but I
salt because we
think,
don't know shit about shit.
well, I do have a psychology degree, but
You actually do.
I have a master's in psychology.
Oh my gosh, I just didn't notice you for a minute. Let me stop and notice you for a minute and
See, here's one
recognize
more
that
thing.
you do have a master's degree in psychology. I don't know shit about shit. So, all right. So maybe you are right. Maybe it's not insecurity, but I still say it is.
I just think that no matter what it is, and everybody grows and evolves. And if one person stays in the same place, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah.
Because just like the high school friends at the table, right? You go back, you can't talk about everything you did when you were 14
Yeah.
when you're 50. Like, yeah, it was all fun. And we have some friends that every time we get together, I love them, but they tell the same story about something
Over
I
and over.
did when I was 21 years old.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not a flattering story.
Yeah.
And I'm now 53,
Yeah. You're like, I'm kind of over that story and
and
that's not who I am. Yeah.
I did something stupid, and
Yeah.
like, you don't know, like, you haven't grown with me, you haven't evolved with me, like,
Yeah.
and I still love them, but it's not where I'm going to put my energy and my time,
Yeah.
because you haven't even taken the time to look to see if I'm wrong about who you are.
Yeah. And I think that's the key. I want you listeners to really pay attention to people in your life and where they are growing and evolving. Stop and acknowledge that. And if you're not evolving in that same area, that's okay. But acknowledge that. I think that's half the battle too, is that, if you are in a situation where you have someone in your life who is bettering themselves, you wish you could do that, but you're maybe not there yet. You're not ready to do that, but you still can be a cheerleader. And instead of saying, wow, I wish I wasn't left behind, or acting out, you can say, I admire you for what you're doing. And I eventually would love to get to a point where I too can do that, but I'm not there yet. So I'm going to support you and I'm going to let you become an inspiration. I think there may be a lesson there in becoming a cheerleader instead of trying to drag people back down, right? So that is something really big that people do. And sometimes they don't mean to do it. And other times they really do mean to do it, sabotage you so you don't become better. So, that whole notion of getting left behind. So let's try to be more observant about the people in your life who genuinely are trying to make improvements. And maybe you haven't noticed those improvements. So that is your challenge for the week. And I think disruption takes awareness. Disruption doesn't always mean dramatic change. Sometimes it's the small act of staying present or letting go of the outdated version of someone and making room for who they are becoming. That is how we honor evolution, and that is how we show up with love. I don't know, maybe we land it there, unless you have something smarter to say because you have a degree in psychology.
No, you said that disruption doesn't always look like grand gestures or radical inventions, right? Sometimes it's subtle, and it's as powerful as letting go of the version of someone you thought you knew and allowing them to be the person that they're turning into, instead of trying to label them with something that you are comfortable with.
Yeah. And so maybe if you just acknowledge or hold a mirror up, maybe you've been guilty of keeping someone boxed in. So listeners, ask yourself, what if I'm wrong? What if they're no longer the person that I decided they were? Because no one gets to stay the same forever. So,
Love it. We're done.
all right, we're
That
done.
is a
All
mic
right.
drop.
Right there. Thanks for listening,
I have to
disruptors.
go finish my bread.
Keep on disrupting, my fellow disruptors. See you next time.
See you next week.
And that's a wrap on this week's episode of the Disruptors Creed, where we don't do average, and we sure as hell don't do status quo. It's produced by me, Kristen Ziman, because I like to be in control of everything. Musical score is by Ethan Reardon and Jake Ziman, because talent runs deep in this gene pool. If you like what you heard, do that thing. Click subscribe, like, follow, or whatever button keeps this chaos flowing into your ears. And if you didn't like it, you probably need it more than you think. Head over to KristenZeman.com and sign up for my weekly brain droppings, where I dump thoughts, disrupt your thinking, and hopefully light a fire under your ass. all conveniently delivered to your inbox every Monday. You're welcome. Now go out there and cause some good trouble. Until next time, keep on disrupting, my fellow disruptors. Onward and upward.